The Bear Creek Greenway is a 20-mile paved multi-use path that links the cities of Ashland, Talent, Phoenix, Medford, and Central Point. While interest in a bicycle path in the area began in 1899, the first 3.5-mile segment was constructed after a bill was passed in the Oregon legislature in 1973 that authorized its initial development. Since then, Jackson County has incrementally acquired parcels of land along the Greenway with the support of local trail advocates, local communities, and state and federal funding investments. Especially in the early days, the Greenway was also an inspiration for other communities across the state who watched these developments and started planning their own regional trail systems. Today, the Greenway connects these communities and a system of parks along the trail. Plans are underway to continue to extend the trail to more parks and into the Rogue River Greenway, which would link the Bear Creek Greenway to Gold Hill, Rogue River, and Grants Pass. Sadly, much of the Greenway was impacted by wildfires in 2020, but through support from partners and the power of volunteers, Jackson County has reopened the trail and continues to restore the surrounding area. On the western side of the state is the newly completed Corvallis to Sea Trail. The genesis for the trail dates back to 1974 when the idea for a trail through the Oregon Coast Range was first suggested. Early organizers had difficulty securing permission from landowners along the route, so the idea eventually was shelved in the late 90s. In 2003, a group of trail enthusiasts resurrected the plan and formed the Corvallis to Sea Partnership, which has worked tirelessly to make this dream a reality. The partnership negotiated routes with public and private landowners where the trail crossed, including the Siuslaw National Forest, which finalized a 20-year permit for the trail in 2018. Volunteers with the partnership have dedicated over 50,000 hours to lay out, build, and continue to maintain the route, removing thousands of pounds of invasive weeds, clearing brush, building bridges, installing kiosks and hundreds of signs, developing and refining maps, and so much more. The 62-mile hiker-biker trail was completed in 2020 and on August 21, 2001 was officially opened with a ribbon-cutting ceremony held at both ends. Gary Chapman, president of the C2C Partnership, compared the project to the works of Michelangelo at the ceremony, saying, "You must have patience because you're going to have setbacks. You may be set back for a year or two every time. You need a plan B, an alternate that will keep things alive and going. It's like Michelangelo and some of his sculptures. It is inside that block of marble. The trail is inside that hillside, that mountain slope. It's just a matter of carving it out." The Oregon Coast Trail was one of the first trail plans supported by ORTAC under the Trails Act. The northernmost section of the OCT was designated by ORTAC and the Oregon Transportation Commission as officially hikeable in 1975, although it was noted that some gaps in the initial 62-mile segment still needed to be filled. One of those gaps was between the southern Neahkahnie Mountain Trailhead and the city of Manzanita, where hikers had to walk along the shoulder of a tight and dangerous section of Highway 101. From changing land ownership to steep terrain, filling this gap wasn't without its challenges. Led by volunteer Connie Soper, a partnership formed in recent years between the City of Manzanita, Lower Nehalem Community Trust, ODOT, Tillamook People's Utility District, and Trail Keepers of Oregon to make this new connection a reality. Staff from Oregon State Parks and Chris Bernhardt with C2 Recreation Consulting worked with these partners to plan a trail that was constructed by Trail Keepers of Oregon and the Northwest Youth Corps. In 2020, this section of the Oregon Coast Trail was officially open to hikers and will be maintained by Trail Keepers of Oregon into the future. And if that wasn't enough to celebrate, this project recently received a Recreational Trails Program Achievement Award from the National Coalition for Recreational Trails. Congratulations to everyone involved for their great work. Further down the Oregon Coast Trail in Yachats is a segment named the Amanda Trail. OCT hikers walk this section as they head southbound from Yachats towards Cape Perpetua. The trail pays tribute to Amanda in our history of stolen lands and forced removal of Native peoples by settlers and their militias. In 1855, Central and Southern Oregon Coast tribes signed a treaty ceding their lands in exchange for what they thought would be a peaceful life on a reservation if the treaty was ratified by Congress, which it wasn't. The large treaty area in the Central Coast and Coast Range was eventually cut to allow for more settler homesteading. In 1864, the military was ordered to capture any natives living off the new reservation boundaries. Amanda DeCoos was one of the 46 people who were captured and ordered to walk north to the Alsea Sub-Agency Reservation in modern-day Yachats. Amanda was a blind woman living on a ranch near the Coos River with a settler and their daughter Julia, who she was forcibly separated from. The last record of Amanda is found in a journal kept by Corporal Royal Bensel, who described the painful walk as Amanda walked along the ragged rocks around Cape Perpetua and tore her feet. Before this history was widely known, the Siuslaw National Forest and State Parks had plans to develop a section of trail headed north from Cape Perpetua. The idea was shelved because of terrain and funding challenges. Joanne and Norman Kittle purchased the private land north of Cape Perpetua in the mid-'80s and were committed to creating an Oregon Coast Trail connection through their property. And finally, in 1997, the trail was completed thanks to the work of volunteer trail builders, land management staff, Angel Job Corps students, and the Kittles. Later, a trail was constructed alongside Highway 101 so hikers can safely walk from Yachats to the Amanda Trail. In 2003, a statue created by local artist Cy Meadows was donated and placed at a gathering area along the trail. The statue has attracted more visitors to the trail and serves as the center of educational events and ceremonies. Beginning in 2012, Yachats trail volunteers and the city have partnered with local tribes to host an annual peace hike on New Year's Day. The peace hike commemorates the tragic events that Amanda has come to symbolize and is helping to bring reconciliation to a previously divided people. One of the remaining challenges of the trail is a bridge crossing over a creek. After the original bridge was replaced due to age, the replacement bridge was wiped out by a landslide, and a temporary bridge is on its way to being replaced by a suspension bridge in early 2022. The suspension bridge is its own story of partnership. Joanne Kittle expanded her land donation to state parks and helped coordinate a village of funders, including the foundations of the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians and Confederated Tribes of the Coos, Lower Umpqua, Siuslaw Indians, the City of Yachats, Lincoln County, Oregon State Parks, FEMA, View the Future, the Yachats Trails Committee, and so many more groups and individual funders. These partnerships and generous donations will help preserve access to the Amanda Trail for current and future generations. Near the Coast Range, the 21-mile Banks-Vernonia State Trail is one of the first rail-to-trails in Oregon. The trail follows an abandoned rail line where trains once hauled logs and lumber from Vernonia to Portland from the early 1900s through the 1950s. After the rail line was briefly used for an excursion train in the 1960s, it was abandoned and purchased by the Oregon Department of Transportation in 1974 and now is managed by the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. While the trail was originally planned for hikers and bikers, local equestrians were also interested. So ORTAC and the state worked with the equestrian community to ensure their needs were also met by including a natural surface trail parallel to the paved trail in most sections. In 2007, Stubbs Stewart State Park opened adjacent to the trail, providing direct access for campers and parkgoers. Today, the trail is part of the 50-mile Tualatin Valley Scenic Bikeway and was recently connected to the Crown-Zellerbach Trail thanks to crews and volunteers with the City of Vernonia and Columbia County. The OC&E Woods Line State Trail is another long-distance rail-to-trail in Oregon that connects Klamath Falls to the community of Bly and the Sycan Marsh, and is one of the 10 longest rail trails in America. The almost 110-mile trail is built on the old rail beds of the OC&E and Weyerhaeuser railroads, which were largely used to support the region's timber industry from the early 1900s through the 70s. OC&E stands for Oregon, California, and Eastern, as the railroad was envisioned to connect southern Oregon to California and the eastern side of the state. When use of the rail lines slowed in the 1980s, Weyerhaeuser railbanked the lines and transferred management to Oregon State Parks in 1992, and the transition from railroad to trail began. Today, the trail is used year-round by hikers, bikers, equestrians, Nordic skiers, and other non-motorized trail users. The route includes a paved multi-use segment in Klamath Falls, gravel routes through the Fremont-Wainema National Forest, an over 100-year-old railroad trestle, wildlife viewing, open scenery along the Sprague River, and solitude for miles and miles. Much further north, along the Oregon-Washington border, the historic Columbia River Highway was constructed between 1913 and 1922 to provide an east-west transportation corridor while also providing better access to the dramatic scenery of the Columbia River Gorge. The historic highway was replaced by the interstate in the 1960s, and many sections were covered, filled with rock, and abandoned. Since the early 1970s, ORTAC and other advocates were in discussion with the Forest Service about their desires to establish a bicycle trail along sections of the historic highway, and in the 1980s, new interest gained hold. Today, thanks to the work of ODOT, Oregon State Parks, and their many partners, 68 of the 73 miles of historic highway are open, and 12-plus miles are car-free stretches, open only to people hiking, cycling, electric bicycling, or using wheelchairs. ODOT continues to work towards closing the remaining 5 miles of gaps that will complete the trail, making additional connections near Hood River and providing access to even more dramatic views of the Columbia River Gorge. And in line with the early vision of ORTAC, visitors can also access the historic Columbia River Highway State Trail from the 40-mile loop trail system that continues to be expanded in and around the Portland metro area. A more recently designated route, the Oregon Timber Trail, is a nearly 700-mile-long backcountry mountain bike route crisscrossing the Cascade Range from California to the Columbia River Gorge. The Oregon Timber Trail Alliance, or OTTA, was founded in 2016 to enhance rider experience, uplift communities, educate, and steward the lands that it passes through. Quickly rising to the top of its field, the trail has attracted riders from over 30 countries and formed a large community of supporters who trek to remote corners of the state to volunteer their time, maintaining and rehabilitating the many rugged and abandoned sections of route. A primary focus of the OTTA and its volunteers has been the Watson Fire Rehabilitation Project. This project is working to rehabilitate a 15-mile section of the Fremont Tier burned in the 60,000-acre Watson Fire in 2018. With support from the Recreational Trails Grant Program, the OTTA has been able to hire a professional trail builder as well as dedicate several thousand hours of volunteer time to this massive effort. This scenic and thrilling segment is located just outside of Paisley, Oregon, and is slated to be completed in summer of 2022. And finally, moving back up to the northwest corner of the state, a signature trail is being planned to run through the heart of the North Coast Range from Banks to Tillamook, following the former Pacific Railway and Navigation Company rail line. The idea for the Salmonberry Trail gained traction in 2011 when the port of Tillamook Bay approached the state and Cycle Oregon about exploring their trail vision, and the following year, a formal partnership was formed. Since then, trail lovers, land managers, and other partners have developed a path forward to make this incredible connection from the metro area to the coast. The ambitious proposal isn't without challenges. From an over $200 million price tag to steep canyon crossings and the need for cross-jurisdictional maintenance and management, it will take years for the dream to be realized. But as we've seen from early advocates of the Oregon Coast Trail and Corvallis to Sea Trail, it's important to all these partners and trail lovers that we never give up. And this dream is already on its way. The line has been rail banked, preliminary engineering is done, communities have adopted the route into their transportation plans, funding has been secured for small segments near the coast, and conservation and stewardship planning is underway. Looking towards the future, this 86-mile non-motorized trail will eventually serve hikers, pikers, equestrians, hunters, and all Oregonians and visitors who have a passion for the outdoors. To learn more about the project, visit salmonberrytrail.org.